5 months. 5 months since... It's been 5 months. 5 months since Murder Drones ended. It feels kind of surreal that it all ended in the way that it did.
You don't know me and I hate you!
Kinda hot?
I didn't think it will end like this, honestly. I already started college again, I'm talking about the digital circus, and in the future I'd like to get into Warhammer, but damn how time flies. Look, I haven't changed my mind about the ending, but today we're not going to talk about that. I want to finish this series of videos in a complete way, addressing topics that I didn't talk about before, because until now I was analyzing each episode trying to ignore the rest of the series, but now I can talk more extensively about it. I didn't do it before because it's like talking about a puzzle without having all the pieces, but it's time. I will talk about practically everything that goes from animation to shipping. However, this video will be the most subjective of all, because contrary to the analysis to the episodes where I try to be as subjective as possible, here I will give my point of view of the series in general. And there are issues that I think could have done better. I will try to be objective even if I do not like it, but understand me. I started this series of videos because I love this series and that love went away. In fact, it's funny to see the character development I got when I saw my videos all at once. So this is made from my point of view. So let's bring this manga arc of my life to a close. To begin, we should think what made it stand out from the rest, since this is not the first Glitch project and it's not the first web series made by an independent studio either way. You need something, anything to stand out, and we can see this from the pilot, starting with its technical level. Meta Runner doesn't look bad, but there's no comparison with this, and that is the episode with the worst animation. And this series knew how to sell itself. It knows that its target audience is mostly teenagers, but it makes the most of it. Let's start with the basics. The design of the characters are quite attractive, and yes, I'm talking about that.
Am I dreaming or did you do something not?
Why do they have to look like that? Why V and J are more thick than the last Miss Universe?
Sí, mírala, esa minita, esa quiere tu pene.
Liam and Glitch knew what they were doing. Same with the humor, their setting, and even the protagonists. As I said in my first video, the series drinks a lot from anime, but what finally sold me was...
Dad?
This series knows when not to take itself seriously. It knows that it's a product for teenagers and it makes fun of that trope. Well, of all tropes. The series committed tropes but made fun of them, so that when it was really serious, it surprises you. This scene of Khan abandoning his daughter was very clever, taking the viewer by surprise and making something very clear. Do you think you know me? Dude, you don't know anything about me. The series subverts your expectations all the time, for better or worse. The series takes the cliches of its genre and makes fun of them. Then it doesn't take that route, but a completely different one, seating and interesting the viewer as you're intrigued by how characters that seem to come out of a fanfic face things that they're not prepared for. That sold it for me since the beginning, and we see it with its protagonist, Uzi. She seems like an OC of some edgy teenager. She feels like a character that would have been the villain or the rival of some other story. However, like any edgy teenager who acts like a bad guy, the moment things get serious and it's time to act like adults, they break down and run away to their mom's arms. We see this from the first episode, where we could already see moments in which that edgy facade breaks, showing us someone quite real actually. Don't lie, everyone was a cringe teenager once, and unlike the cliche of the emo Avenger, it has a reasonable justification. She grew up in a boat all her life waiting to die. Her mother is dead, her father is an incompetent who practically abandoned her, and her classmates hate her. You understand why she's an edgy emo always on the defensive. Throughout the series, she has moments of vulnerability to understand that she's not a comic book supervillain, that she's not above the situation, and that she's getting into things way out of her league. This series takes the cliches and puts them in situations that they are not made to be in. For example, Khan, Uzi's father. Whenever fiction family members get involved in the situation, they're usually only there to give emotional support and not intervene directly. For example, Ben's parents in Ben 10 never had to face Bilgax, and when it happens, most do the right thing. But what if they didn't? What if they threatened Ben with leaving if he didn't stop? What if they really left? The only time I remember seeing something like that was in The Dark Knight Rises, when Alfred abandons Bruce Wayne, and in JoJo's Golden Wind, when Fugo abandons the group for fear of Diablo. I thought he would come back later to help Batman, but no, Alfred really left and didn't came back. The same with Fugo. He didn't do the cliche of abandoning the protagonist to later regret it and come back to save them at a key moment. No, he really abandoned Passione for fear of Diablo and never came back. Khan really abandoned his daughter to die for being a coward, and like Alfred, by the time he came to his senses, it was too late. It's a case of a true coward, not someone who claims to be a coward but you know he will help in a decisive moment. He really is a coward. Same goes for his co-star, N, who is basically Papyrus from Undertale. But what if you take Papyrus and put him in Jujutsu Kaisen? I love characters who are pure-hearted good guys, but I especially love N because he's a good guy who has to deal with some really fucked up shit. His life was a lie. His sister is a Lovecraftian monster who ripped him apart into a killing machine after destroying everything he loved. It's interesting to see a breath of God dealing with a raging hell. That's why everyone loves him, and I actually think he would have been a better protagonist. But as you can see, the best thing about this series are its characters. Each one of them is quite charismatic, and you have to recognize the great work of characterization. Since all the worker drones are built from the same model, so you only have the hair and clothes to make them look different. And boy did they achieve it! Each character has individuality, even the background ones. They don't all look the same unless there's a reason for it. Just with the clothes, hair and color palette, each one looks different from the last, but at the same time maintaining similarities, since after all, they all start from the same base. They all start from the same model. As you can see, the best part of the series is always about its characters and how they act under the circumstances. They're also very charismatic, following the line of Liam's characters who are not necessarily super innovative, but they stick in your mind. Even the ones you don't like, you can clearly identify in them. When cosplayers cosplay your characters, you know you did something right. And I see these characters at multiple conventions. This added to the technical section, its music and ambience is very well done. The music all starts from the same base, disassembly required, but each piece sounds different and appropriate for each circumstance. For a dance, for a contemplative moment, for moments of horror, maintaining that iconic theme. Speaking of horror, the protagonists being robots are not only to help the animation, since animating humans in 3D is much more complicated to make it look good without them looking like plastic dolls to a certain extent, but it also has the added bonus that you can be as visceral as you want. Here the deaths are creative, and since everyone is robotic in the series, it makes that when something organic appears, the whole atmosphere changes completely. When something organic appears, you know that things are serious. And also helps to not overload the series with gore. Horror is not measuring gallons of blood, and if you see gore all the time, eventually it loses impact. Here, however, when you see blood and not oil, you know it's time to run. And although the series is not the epitome of horror, it knows very well how to make you nervous. And for me, that is due to the difference in power. The murder drones are shown to you as the most terrifying creatures in this series. They're literally angels of death, and they set the bar for what danger means in the series. They're the peak of power and are used for a maneuver that in economy it's called anchoring. Let me explain with an example. Imagine that I'm going to sell you a car that is worth $30,000, but when I'm going to sell it, I say that it's worth $60,000, but it has a 50% discount. Unconsciously, you have anchored yourself to 60,000, so now those 30,000 look more attractive. The series does the same, anchoring you to the fact that the most dangerous and powerful beings in the series are the murder drones, robotic beings. So when something appears that is above that, you engage the viewer's attentions, and it helps a lot that that something is something with Lovecraftian overtones. And all of this with a humor that is very well placed, mostly.
How you doing, kids?
That doesn't break your immersion, mostly. And that's what makes Murder Drones great for me. Its characters, its music, the horror, the apparent character development that was coming, and a well-placed humor. As I said, the series doesn't have innovative characters, but it will be interesting to see these characters interacting on a world which wasn't made for them. Watch them move across the plot. All of this is what made Murder Drones stand out for me. So, Liam and Glitch will make the most of these topics, right? That's what they did, right? Okay, one detail. When I said that this is the father of indie animation, I'm talking about the more professional style of indie animation. That means we get a company behind and all. the more modern style. Because if we're being really serious, the real father of indie animation for me is Madness Combat. So just to clarify that, we're talking about the most current indie animation. So yeah, that.
I haven't got a donation or a sub for an hour. What the fuck?
Okay, you'll notice that I didn't talk about the story, and that's because I'm not interested. I mean, it's not bad, but I don't feel like it hooks you. What interests me is the characters in the story, not the story itself. I want to see how the characters react to the events, not the events itself. That's the problem. Look, Five Nights at Freddy's may have a confusing and disastrous story, but despite everything, it hooks you. Half of the people don't know what happened after FNAF 3, but everyone knows about the Afton family, what happened to Michael Afton. I mean, everyone has a notion of the lore of FNAF, of what happens, even if half of it is outdated information. But the same doesn't happen with Murder Drones, except for the fans. The most casual public doesn't understand what's going on. Even many of my viewers claim that they had to watch a video to understand the plot. If FNAF showed us anything, it's that even if your plot is a mess, if you manage to hook the public interest, they will at least have a notion of it. And it's not exactly bad. The story behind the Murder Drones, the Absolute Sober, the relationship with Sin, but the way it's presented doesn't make me interested. I mean, there's a reason why a big portion of the fandom is interested in the ships and not in the mysteries. You might be wondering why I compare this series so much with FNAF, and that's very simple. They have practically the same way of telling the story, giving you clues of what happened, but without telling you what happened completely. We see the consequences of the actions committed, not the actions themselves. It's your job to put together the story as a viewer. The problem, that doesn't work in a series. Not even FNAF is the best example because it doesn't work all the times. Since one is a video game, you as a player are part of the story. Part of the fun is that you have to play at being the detective who solves the mystery. In a series, you're a spectator who watches the story unfold. There has to be a story that the viewer sees clearly, not just mysteries. Look at the Owl House. It's a series full of mysteries where they give you clues so that those who like to dig in can solve them. But there's a clear plot that we can all see. Luz learning to be a witch at the same time that she tries to stop the evil Emperor Bellows and his mysterious plan. Through the clues that the series leaves you, you can discover what happened to the Titan or Bellows and his motivations, but there's a clear story that you can follow. With Murder Drones, that doesn't happen. It's a super confusing mess that scares away any new audience, and the worst thing is that it feels so forced. Let me show you how Murder Drones feels, inciting you to make theories. Go on and make theories. Go on and make theories. Go on and make theories. It's like that all the time. It doesn't feel natural. You feel like the series wants to be the new FNAF so desperately that it makes me lose any interest I had in the lore. But this applies in general. You feel the series wants to be relevant. It seems desperate to go viral. We see it with Bryden, who was a little joke that became a meme in the community, but in chapter 4 it's one of Uzi's classmates who is killed by her. But unlike the others, this one even had a mention at the end of the episode. You can tell that they saw that it became a meme and wanted to give it more relevant. Like when Fast and Furious they started using the Familia just because it became a meme. It feels like the series is more interested in getting YouTubers to make theories about it than its viewers. And this started to become more noticeable from episode 4, where they start bombarding you with lore from all sides. But it's not the worst, like I once said. Something similar happens with the humor. You'll notice that I said it was very well placed, but I didn't talk directly about the humor itself. Remember all those memes about if X thing was written by Bipsy Pop?
Welcome to the goddamn digital circus. My name is Kane. I am your bitch.
Well, replace the insults with TV tropes.
Classic toxic masculinity, Chad. That's never gonna end up problematic. I'm an angsty teen fad, bite me. I'm sneaking to the murder drone lair tonight to get the last spare part I need to save the world with it and earn my dad's respect and stuff. No more feedback on my repression today! Just frickin' believing in me! And that's not even an edgy teen hyperbole like when I said it last week!
More just confused, especially with
The fact I'm too rogue to re-enter society now? I can never return.
the recent disappearances.
My crazed ramblings! Stay out of my frickin' room!
Personal space for very alarming coping mechanisms isn't covered under a non-optional family support structure.
It's almost the only fucking joke. Yes, Homer, we already see you. But without a doubt, the worst is this.
Nigga, what the f-
Just like insults are not jokes, killing someone is not a joke. As I said in the analysis of episode 4, in Super Jail, each episode starts with a criminal called Jackknife who often kills someone for comedy's sake. Jack kills people all the time, but in Super Jail, the jokes work because that is a part of the joke, not the joke. The joke is that Jackknife kills people to then receive a punishment from Jailbug, which beats the shit out of him. That's the joke, not that haha Jackknife kills someone. The Super Jail joke was thought out. This one was not. This is the same as this. No, making fun of tropes and cliches doesn't automatically make you good, especially when you yourself are going to fall into several of those tropes. Remember how in episode 1 the series made it very clear that the drones did not kill the humans?
It's not like we revolted and killed all humans or anything. Mostly because they handled that just fine all by themselves.
As they made fun of that cliche of movies like Terminator? Well, guess what? Sin extinguished humanity using an army of killer robots. No! You're not smart, murder drones. You don't want to give a message or you don't have a deep meaning. You don't have to be so complicated. Oh yes, I was getting ahead of myself. But you'll see how the series fell, and fell for those same reasons. Because it wanted to look smart and it came out as an idiot.
Boy, everyone is stupid except me.
It seems that at some point Liam got the notifications of how people praise his unpredictability, how the series didn't follow the obvious path, and how it subverted expectations. Because from that moment on, the series strived to always be unpredictable. It didn't matter if the result was better or not. Here the substance doesn't matter. What matters is the style. Look, as I said, this series is characterized by surprising you. But it seems that it became the philosophy of the story. It doesn't matter if it's good or bad. What matters is to surprise you and not leaving things clear. This started already from chapter 4 and will mark the beginning of its second biggest problem. This series doesn't explain anything! What matters is to make a plot twist, not to develop your characters, and that is noticeable. After Uzi awakened his powers, we saw how she could barely control them. She had no control over it, while Doll has had her powers for a long time, so she can control them effectively. It means that the next episode we will see Uzi just learning to use his powers. But that will be predictable! Then let's make Uzi already know how to use them! Yes, Uzi went from breaking glasses without being able to control herself to becoming a master solver. Now she can use the solver like it was nothing. When did she learn to use it? Who knows? Do solver users automatically know how to use it when they fully awaken it? That will be the most boring option possible. Was there a time skip? It seems that some time passed from episode 3 to 4, but how much time exactly? Did she learn to use the solver in less than a week? Well, that will be very convenient, although not impossible. Was there a time skip of several months? God, I hope not. Why? If that was the case, do you know in which other series several months passed between episode and episode? This is what I mean. To be unpredictable, it generates a big doubt that in the future, it will turn Uzi into a Mary Sue. But there is an episode that is the epitome of everything bad about the series. Episode 5, Home, is the worst episode of all. At this point, we all wanted to see what happened in the past. A flashback to know the events of the mansion. We all wanted to see the story of N and B, how their life was and what happened to them. But that will be somewhat predictable, and remember, we're super smart and we do plot twists. Instead of a flashback, they give us modified memories. Like when a character travels in time and alters the past, what we were most interested in was knowing what happened in the past. But thanks to Uzi's intervention, what we see are events caused by his actions. Some things could not have happened without his intervention, so we do not know what actually happened. But it's not just that. The episode that should have given development to the other two protagonists literally took away the personality of one of them. The most interesting thing about the past was to see what the life of N and B and J was like. But here, we are already observing the moment when everything was ruined. And I don't care. I don't care that B has become a monster because I haven't had time to get attached to her character. I don't know her. I don't know what she was like before. What her personality was like. What her relationship with N was like. I mean, they had a crush, but what else? This series never develops its characters, except for Uzi, but we'll get to that. We finally have an episode to give development to the characters, and you wasted making jokes that break the tension?
Jump scare. Grab.
Dark X Wolf 17!
You didn't have to see this. Son of a... Come on, solver of the absolute fabric. Get a grip. Tantrum.
Yeah, bro. Which, in fact, this episode is the one that handles humor the worst. And it has the best humor in the entire series, but it breaks the tension at all times. This is, for me, the biggest problem of the series. Being unpredictable doesn't automatically make you good. There's a reason why tropes and cliches exist, and it's because sometimes they are the best option. It doesn't matter if your story is not original, if it's well executed. But this series always tries to surprise you, and it gets tiring. Stop trying to subvert my expectation and give me a fucking normal flashback or training episode. An example of this is when Anne stands up to be in episode 4, which was unexpected, and at first it was good, since he's an innocent and pure character taking a more mature attitude, standing up for himself and not letting himself be mistreated. But when you remember that Jay stepped on him, tortured him, and even after that, he shows that he still has respect for Jay, well, it's true that B is a bad person, but Why do you treat her worse than the girl who actively tortured you? Well, I'm sure he will act the same with Jay.
One.
Effective drones were cloned more.
This series is so inconsistent. It doesn't give development to its characters, but sometimes it does, but then it goes backwards, then it advances. This also affects the world building, because if that's how they treat character development, how do you think they'll treat their world? I mean, we know that the Zelda has a characteristic symbol. Why?
Why not?
Why are there pentagrams in Tessa's room?
Why not?
Why is there a crucified drone?
Why not?
If Sin crucified, why did she do it if that could have given away her plans?
Why not?
Why do drones seem to have no sense of survival?
Why not?
If drones doesn't care about being killed, why does Doll want to avenge her mother?
Why not?
By the way, Doll, who carried half of the series on her shoulders before Sin's arrival, like Uzi, wants revenge on the murder drones for killing her mother. But then we see how the drones have no regards for their lives or their companions. Let's see, serious, choose. The drones are idiots who died to make comedy, or should I care about their lives? You can't pick both. I can't care that Doll's mother died if you kill them for fun in every moment. So the development of her world and her characters is decent at best. What is needed to make this worse? I have it. Slow down! Was Liam drunk on Red Bull when he wrote this? The pacing of this series is disgusting. I'm almost certain that Liam had no plan, so that people liked the fast pace of episode 3 and decided to do it for every episode. It feels like Liam lost interest after episode 4 and wanted to finish this series as soon as possible. Leonardo 8HC, and I'm not even gonna try to pronounce that right. Comments. I never get tired of saying it. Murder Drones is a series with a creator who seems to have run out of desires to do it halfway through, and with an ending that seems to have been made by a fan who watched the series only for the ships and the soundtrack. The pacing of this series is atrocious. It goes 1,000 miles per hour. It doesn't stop at any moment. For comparison, the Digital Circus has 6 main characters, and you feel that each one has a moment to shine. Murder Drones has 3 main characters, and you feel that it's overloaded with characters. They don't have time. All the development is taken up by Uzi. The one who had the worst time was B, and I think I know why. You see, originally Uzi didn't exist. The series was going to focus on N and B. However, later they created Uzi, and it seems that all the screen time and character development that was destined for B was transferred to Uzi. B is unnecessary in this series. We don't see a progressive change because it happens off camera. Oh, I forgot, this series does the same as Has Been Hotel. Things happen off camera. They don't show it to you, and the best example is V. She starts the series as a crazy anime girl who mistreated Anne, but she becomes friends with Lizzie so that she lets her into the bunker and kill everyone. But she ends up becoming true friends with Lizzie. When did they show that? It sounds like the script of an episode in a PowerPoint presentation that lasts 5 seconds. V and Uzi have a love triangle with Anne. Turns out that B had a crush on Anne, and unlike the others, she didn't lose her memories of the mansion. She just pretended to be crazy to protect Anne. What does protecting Anne has to do with insulting and mistreating him? Creator's fetish for yandere girls, I suppose. The point is that B doesn't trust Uzi to protect Anne. They don't get along in general. In fact, they almost kill each other when Uzi lost control and became a monster. During episode 6, Uzi is possessed by Sin and is incredibly unstable, putting them in danger several times. But then B turns to her and says,
Uzi, I trust you.
why? When did they become friends? When did they have development together? Who cares? Next plot twist. The whole episode 6 proved that Uzi is unreliable. But now it turns out that B trusts her? They don't have time. The show is so convinced that its confusing lore is the most important thing. It's like when Lucasfilm thought that Rey was their most valuable asset. I don't care about the lore. I want to see the characters. But the show is going so fast, I can't even appreciate the lore, honestly. It seems like they heard that the Digital Circus was only going to last 9 episodes and said, oh yeah? Well, I'm finished my show in 8 episodes. Seems like Liam took a 2-season script and compressed it into 8 episodes. I wonder who else did that. So we have confusing lore, a story that doesn't explain anything to you, lack of character development, an inconsistent world, and pace that goes at light speed, the perfect recipe for disaster. A running train at full speed that will crash in one of the worst endings I ever seen. Oh wait, right, I now can talk about ships. Well, to start off, as I said, there is a love triangle between Uzi and Anne and B. So to begin, if you don't like that stuff, well, I'm sorry, because it's one of the few sources of interaction. And if you do, well, the series also doesn't give it too much attention until the last 2 episodes. So it's not even one of the most interesting love triangles I've seen. And now, I'm going to get into the main ship. The Uzi X Anne ship sucks! It's not bad and it could have worked, but I don't like it in its current state. To start off, this ship goes against the philosophy of the series, subverting expectations, not following TV tropes. Well, what's more cliche than the male protagonist and the female protagonist falling in love? Let's take it step by step. The ship isn't a bad idea on paper. It makes sense. Uzi is an angsty teen who desperately needs connection, while Anne is emotional support personified. But the problem starts with the development. It makes sense that Uzi fell in love with Anne, since she's really unknown and for the first time she has someone she cares about. But from episode 1 to 5, Anne never showed that he reciprocated those feelings. But you don't see how Anne treats Uzi? Yes, he treats her the same as anyone else. Anne is a bred of God and he always treats people well. There's literally nothing out of character. He acts according to his personality. Emphatic, understanding, caring, sweet, kind, helpful. He's like that. Except that Uzi needs therapy and he gives it to her. It's not something extraordinary. It's the same for almost all of episode 6 until the end where... Oh, well, out of nowhere he shows feelings that he never showed before, but well, I guess it's a good start, episode 7. What? What? How? When? Where? I watched the whole series again. At no point do they say they are a couple. They don't show anything. Not even a, she's like my girlfriend, her name's Uzi. Nothing. Out of nowhere in the middle of a fight. 1 episode before the end.
What?
Dorman.
When did they become a couple? Oh no, I already know where. Off camera. Something as important as the main couple became canon off camera? You know why I love Lumity? Because I don't like romance. But if there's going to be a romance, I don't want to wait 200 chapters for them to finally say they love each other at the end of the series.
Dating, right?
Oh, yeah.
Just because I can't always read.
Like, yeah.
Yay.
Oh, are you kidding me?
You see, kids? After making fun of all possible tropes, we're going to do a speed run of all the tropes in 1 episode. And the problem is that Uzi falls entirely on Uzi. All the emotional impact falls on Uzi. We don't really see Anne expressing himself in this relationship. It's just the script dictates that I'm in love with Uzi. Okay, Uzi, I love you. And you'll tell me, at least their relationship helped Uzi become a better person. Let me put it this way. Uzi, are you a better person because of Anne? Or are you a better person for Anne? I think Uzi could have an emotional dependency problem without Anne. What do I mean by this? Uzi had a character development arc, learning to be a better person, but was it the good influence of Anne that made her change? Or did she only change because she wanted Anne? Meaning that without Anne, she's still the same close person as before? And as far as I can see, she's going down that path. And it has to do with her love rival, V. I'm going to drop the bomb here. And B would have been much better. Let me explain. Throughout the series, Anne didn't show feelings for Uzi, but instead, she kept her crush on B. But that seemed to be the plan, since both Uzi and B would have a development based on their feelings for Anne. On one hand, B would learn that lying and pushing Anne away isn't the right option, no matter if it's to protect him. Opening up with the help of her friendship with Lizzie, stopping to pretend to be a crazy anime girl who doesn't remember anything, while Uzi on the other hand would have improved as a person, but would clash with the reality that Anne likes her but doesn't love her. But that despite that, she's not alone anymore. She doesn't have to keep pushing others away from her. That she's a better person even though Anne doesn't love her. That sounds interesting and with a touch of empowerment. So obviously they didn't go that route. When Uzi loses control in episode 4, she only returns to normal because Anne appeared there, not because she could have overcome her problems, simply because Anne was there. What they did was cover up the wound, but not heal it. In fact, in episode 7, when she feels that Anne betrayed her, she becomes more unstable and gets fully possessed by sin. She simply calmed down because Anne became her boyfriend as she wanted, which makes me doubt Uzi's mental stability if she were to lose Anne. But even so, Uzi feels so boring. I mean, it's literally this. I found this on the internet, but I don't remember where or who created it. Oh, and I'm also going to paraphrase it a bit since it's somewhat outdated. And on the one hand, you have your lifelong crush, the only one who didn't lose her mind, and she still loves you. When you meet Uzi and she started to develop feelings for you, B was jealous, but it understood that Uzi also wanted to protect you, so she thought that she lost any chance she had with you and gave Uzi the job to protecting you since she wanted the best for you and sacrificed herself to save you. Then you have Uzi, who, if there wasn't any time skips, you met her at most 2 weeks ago and for whom you haven't shown any feelings until now. What a difficult decision, but I think the script forces me to choose Uzi. I don't dislike Uzi at all, but on the one hand, it was the most cliche and predictable shift possible. On the other hand, the power of NB to give character development to both B and Uzi makes it seem much more interesting to me than the typical cartoon cliche male and female protagonist couple. I think the NB is a better ship to make canon in the series, since as Atlas Summit said on Reddit, because of how well integrated into the plot it was. It ran parallel to the plot instead of trying to take the spotlight. It fits well and plotted well. Uzi feels like someone took their favorite ship and crowbarred it into a pre-existing story with zero idea on how to integrate it. Besides that, despite everything, they hardly interact with anyone other than each other, and I'm fed up. I want to see the characters interact with the others, not the Uzi and Anne show. But all this explodes in the end.
Well, this sucks.
The ending is the peak of all the problems of this series. All the problems and defects come here. First, even though episode 7 is not necessarily bad, the cracks in the wall were already beginning to be seen. First, we start to commit all those tropes of cinema and TV that would make fun of so much. Characters that were dead begin to come back. We fall into cliches that for me the most offensive is that in the end machines did destroy humanity, when the series literally starts from the premise that the machines did not kill the humans, and cliche ships become canon. For example, in episode 6, a very interesting moral dilemma was raised between Tessa, who is the mother figure / older sister of J and B. Basically, the protagonists want to cure Uzi and find a way to not be hurt by sin, but Tessa explains to Anne that the humans try to control the Soulbird, but by doing so, they seem to spread it to other drones, and that she was there to find out which drones were infected and destroy them to leave the Soulbird without a host and save the universe and its species. But she also doesn't want to hurt Anne and the others. That's why she tries to convince Anne to help her. However, oh no! It seems like they're predicting the plot. We have to make a plot twist now! In the end, all that moral dilemma was replaced by a plot twist Disney-style villain. From here, everything falls apart due to the little time left in the series. plus the atrocious pace. Let's see. My friend, if I tell you that the only cure... Alright, I forgot about the cure. Do you remember Doll? The girl that I mentioned a while ago? Her entire motivation, her entire role in the story revolves around finding a cure, since without it, the Solver users are eventually possessed by sin. Well, for 4 of the 8 episodes, we were looking for that cure. Well, in the end, it was destroyed. Sin and the Solver are practically a Lovecraftian god capable of materializing and modifying matter at will, who can create black holes. Bee had died, the cure was destroyed, and the protagonist was extremely unstable. Plus, she was literally in the center of a planetary explosion. How will they get out of this? Well, very easy. An explosion? No problem. Uzi survives without any explanation and teleports into space. How will they get back to the planet? No problem. By the power of love and finds Uzi in space. And remember, if your enemy is a Lovecraftian god who has already possessed you several times and you're mentally unstable, just use the power of love and believing in yourself to not only resist mind control, but also to control that same god back. The power of love and friendship, bitches! I would like to say that I'm exaggerating, but it's literally what happened. I will not go into details. I already have a whole video talking about the final episodes and another video with a summary of the series for those who do not want to see the analysis of all the episodes individually. But it's like that. The end is the epitome of all the problems that haunted this series. A desperate and abrupt ending which seems written by a creator who wants to abandon the project as soon as possible. And I have already said it. Liam Vickers for me is not Thomas Ostru, a pathological, incompetent, incapable of writing well. But here, I will be honest, I do not feel the passion for the project that was felt before. This episode does not feel like the end of a series. It feels like a season finale. There are useless characters. The villain was so powerful that they have to give her a downgrade more brutal than the one in Anthem. That is what I call it, not absolute end, absolute nerve. They left plot black holes. The newsie who I already criticized, it was not until this moment that they finally decided to say that they are dating, and the treatment of characters did not help. True to form, Murder Drones decided to waste any potential it had. Here's an example. Jay is the leader of the Murder Drones. She was the antagonist of the first episode, and at first she was sold as a bad character and nothing more. But in episode 5, they showed us that her irrational hatred for Anne was partly out of jealousy, since she was very close to the human Tessa, being her best friend and the only person she opens up. But Anne was the favorite, and so she was jealous, or so it was understood. Despite everything, she really loved her best friend. Half of the nonsense that is episode 5 is a subplot of the two of them on a mission to save everyone. In fact, Jay's main trait is that she's blindly loyal to the company, and by extension Tessa. Well, it turns out that no, that all this time she was evil, and even though the villain brutalizes her best friend, she works loyally for her, even though they use her best friend's skin as a disguise. So what was all that subplot in episode 5 for? To make me realize that I wasted my time watching this series? Oh, it's not just her. Remember I said that Bee sacrificed herself? Oh, she's back! Don't worry, that has no weight in the series in episode 3. But not only that, it is revealed that in reality, it's not that Bee had kept her memories, but that she and Jay were working with the main villain, that Bee has been fully conscious, and that she has been carrying out genocides throughout the galaxy at Sin's request. For what purpose? Well, it turns out if she did that, Sin will let Bee stay alone with Ed. That is to say, screw the galaxy, I just want to be alone with my man. The worst thing is that her attempt to an apology seems more like the speech of a toxic girlfriend wanting to keep her ex tied to her. What a great character development, am I right? Besides, she kills drones for pure pleasure. I mean, she's just a crazy anime girl. And who with just one question managed to decipher that Tessa was Sin in the last episode. Here it falls into the most obvious trap in the world and doesn't even have a moment. And it's not a character here, he's an addition of Uzi. From co-protagonist to a Mary Sue accessory. Look, I already made a video on the end, so I won't go into more detail, but the ending is actually quite faithful to what this series was: incongruent, rushed, and disappointing. The series that started out making fun of tropes of fiction ended up feeling like it had a tick of a checklist of cliches. So many plot twists in its attempt to be unpredictable, it took the worst possible path, and that's why I think that's the biggest problem with the series, above its pacing. The series wanted to be unpredictable, never taking the most obvious path, and even when the alternative was worse, in an attempt to avoid all possible tropes, the series got into a deeper and deeper hole that made you feel dissatisfied. That is Murder Drones for me. A series that wanted to be special but forgot to be basic. They bought paint but had no canvas. They took a good idea and inflated it so much that it seemed giant, but it was nothing more than air and a pretty shade. That left its creators delighted, who, in an act of arrogance, thinking that they wrote the Bible too, tried to make it go viral all over the internet, colliding with the cold reality of the apathy and disgust of many in the public. But they were blinded by the heat of the praise of their most devoted fans, who even now refuse to see that the Emperor never had clothes. I still have that speech from a YouTuber. I give a prize to whoever guesses where I got it from. But in short, Liam said, "I'm a genius!" And thinking he was writing the animation revolution, he made a series of unforced errors which could have been avoidable, and by the time he realized it was too late and the train couldn't stop. So just trying to get this over with as soon as possible, he kept accelerating to crash into the next station as soon as possible and free himself from that annoying burden. Sources?
I made it up.
Yes, obviously I don't know how the production of this series was, but just like the beginning of the series feels like it was made by an independent animator who was premiering his first series and obese but full of fashion, the end feels like it was made by an underpaid Japanese animator who wants to go home. A series that was more concerned with MatPat making theories about it than its characters. A script written with arrogant innocence, assuming that it will pass the test while it was selecting all the wrong answers. The script of this series, for me, is a gigantic Dunning-Kruger effect that goes at the speed of light, where it seems that they thought that they were revolutionizing animation while they forgot the most basic. They misinterpreted what their strengths and weaknesses were, and by the time they realized, it was too late. Now, can this be fixed? No, not at all. This thing was ruined and there's no way to fix it, because it will not continue. There will be no season 2, period. Yep, there's nothing to do. This was ruined. There's no hope for Murder Drone. But there may be something in the future that I think should be taken into account. As we could see, the potential was there. The ideas were there. Something very good could have done with it. But remember what I said. This was the first project of an independent animator. Liam, up to this point, didn't have much experience as a showrunner beyond some pilots and abandoned projects. In fact, it's the first series that he finishes. I don't expect anything from Murder Drones anymore. Absolutely nothing. It will be forgotten over the years except by its most die-hard fans. But what interests me is Liam's next project. Think about it. He already has what he didn't have before. Experience. Remember, mistakes make you stronger. The creator of Murder But thanks to that meme, I thought, and well, it's right. Liam has great ideas. He reminds me a lot in that aspect of Kojima or Kishimoto, a creator with good ideas but needs someone to help him focus them. Now he has the experience of a moderately successful series with concepts that work but that were poorly executed. So if mistakes makes you stronger, for his next series and with a good editor, this will be Liam Bickers. Let's hope that this meme becomes canon. For now, the guy is going to take a break. It remains to be seen if he will go on his own or ally with another producer. He may work with Glitch again in the future. As long as he doesn't leave for Spindle Horse, I'll be following him closely with much hope. On the other hand, Murder Drones has already been doomed, and that's all there is to say. But some may wonder why I say that mistakes could have been easily avoided if I'm not a writer. Well, very easy, since with just one extra episode, it would have been enough to correct most of the mistakes in this series. And I know this because it's already been proven. Someone already did it and proved it. Just one episode of just over 20 minutes was enough to fix almost everything. Oh wait, you don't know what I'm talking about? Oh well, I guess you didn't notice, but there was a slight intermission in the programming before the end. By the way, I did saw Liam's Q&A on Discord, but let me tell you something. Liam, that sounds like a good idea. I like what you're saying there. Didn't you think it would be a good idea to put it on the series?